let's do a real world physics question. So in this question, I want to think about the speed limit for an on-ramp. Okay, and I actually have a particular on-ramp I want to look at. So let's switch over. I want to show you my map here. So this is I-12 right there, and this is I-55, and you can see these nice circular patterns. So a lot of these interchanges have these things, and I actually measured this one. It's actually, what is it? 112 meter diameter. It's not perfectly circular, but it's good enough. So what I want to do is to assume, we're going to make the assumption that it's banked. And then if it's banked at 10 degrees, what speed limit should you put to go around that interchange and without having any friction at all? So you can just, it could be a completely icy road and you can still make that turn. That's what we're going to do. I've already started with the picture. So here is my car, and there's my banked turn. And so the car is coming out of the page right there, out of the board. And the center of the circle is over here. Okay, so that's our thing. So we know, number one, I know theta, I said was 10 degrees. That's probably kind of steep, but I just picked something. You can pick your own values. I know that the radius is going to be 112 meters over 2. I want the radius, not the diameter. So, but I put the diameter as 112 meters. Is that right? Yeah. Now, I did not give the mass of the car. Does that matter? We'll find out. Obviously, it's not going to matter if I didn't give it. And you don't want to have to design a road for one mass car and not the other mass cars. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is to draw a force diagram for this car. I'm going to draw it off to the side right here. Okay, so we still have, I'll leave that dot off there. Let's just say R is that way. Okay. So I have the gravitational force, that seems obvious, pushing down that way. mg. Now, what's touching the car? Well, there's only one thing, and that's this road. So the road is going to touch with a normal force, which is normal to the surface, so perpendicular. That's going to be this way. That's not actually 10 degrees. I just drew it kind of exaggerated. Now, what else is touching the car? It's turning in a circle. Do we need to include a circle force? No, that's not an interaction between two objects, right? Interaction between the car and the road, interaction between the car and the earth. Forces are interactions between two objects. There's no acceleration force. You can do that. You can add a fake force, but we don't want to do that. Okay. So what else is touching the car? Nothing. That's it. Okay. So we have our two forces acting on the car, and the next thing that we need to do is to pick our coordinate system. Now, when we looked at something like this before, we would say, oh, well, let's pick the incline as the x-axis. We don't want to do that. Instead, we want to pick this as our x-axis. You could pick that as your x-axis, but trust me, you're gonna not have fun. And then that is your y-axis. So no matter which way you pick your x and y axis, they have to be perpendicular, or otherwise you have a non-orthogonal coordinate system, and you're just opening up a whole can of worms. Not a good idea. What you want to do is to pick the axis of the system such that either the x or the y axis is in the direction of the acceleration. Now, this car is going around a circle. And remember, when things go in a circle, they have centripetal acceleration. The magnitude of that centripetal acceleration is v squared over r. And the centripetal means center pointing. So the direction of the acceleration is this way, towards the center of the circle. So that's why I put my x-axis that way, because now my acceleration is in my x-axis. And my acceleration, my y-axis is 0. If you did it the other way, you'd have an acceleration in both the x and y-axis, and you'd need to find the magnitude. So it's just not a fun thing. Don't do that. So I have my two forces. I have my acceleration. I know my direction. I pick my coordinate system. So now I can say F net, Newton's second law, mass times acceleration. And I'm going to write this in the x and the y direction. So F net in the y direction is going to be equal to, okay, now we do need to do a little bit of algebra here. So if this is the angle 10 degrees right here, that's theta. Then this is also theta, right? So you can see that. So this is, no, wait. Is that theta? Yeah, that's theta. So that's theta. So this is the complement of theta. And then this is 90 degrees, so theta the complement of theta plus 90, that have to be the complement of the complement, so that's theta. And you can also imagine, like, as theta goes to 0, the normal force goes straight up. So there's a couple ways to get that, but that is theta. So in the y direction, I have this component of the normal force in the y direction. And notice that that is the adjacent side to this right triangle right there. So I'm going to use cosine. So that in the y direction, I have in cosine theta. And then in the negative, the force in the negative y direction is just a gravitational force, negative mg. Now our car does not accelerate in the y direction, so this is 0. Okay. Now I don't know n. I do know theta. I don't know m either, right? I do know g. So there's two things in there I don't know. So that's kind of an issue. Now let's go into the x direction. So I can say F net in the x direction. Well, what forces are in the x direction? There's only one, and it's this component of the normal force up here. So this normal force pushes a little bit in the x direction, and that's the opposite side of that triangle. So this is going to be sine of theta. All right, we're doing the same kind of things we did before with Newton's second law. The only difference is we're also using circular motion. And that's going to be the mass times acceleration in the x direction. So the acceleration in the x direction is v squared over r. Now, I know r, I don't know m, I know theta. So I do have a lot of problems here. Well, when you don't know stuff, you just keep plugging up, right? Just chug along, see what happens. You could pick a value for the mass, but let's just not. I'm going to take this equation. I have n in both of the equations. I clearly don't care about the normal force. So I want to solve this for the normal force. If I solve that for the normal force, I get n, let's write it out. N cosine theta is mg. I'm going to divide both sides by cosine theta, and I get n equals mg over cosine theta. Now I'm going to plug that in over here for n, right? I can substitute, and I get mg sine theta over cosine theta equals m v squared over r. Well, look at that. That's just very lovely because 1, the mass cancels. Let's do that in orange. And 2, now I know everything in this equation. I know theta, I know g, I know r. I can solve for v. Now also, if you want, and I do, sine over cosine is tangent. So I can write this as, I'm going to multiply both sides by r. V squared equals rg tangent theta. And then I can take the square root of both sides, and that's it. So let's plug in our values. So I said r was 112 over 2. So it's going to be 56, that's right, 56 meters. So 56 times 9.8 times the tangent of 10. Let's plug it in. And then we're going to have to convert to miles per hour. I want it in miles per hour. Okay. So here we go. Drop, drop. 56, enter. 9.8 times 10 tangent times square root. I get 9.8. 9.8 meters per second, right? That's in meters. That's in meters per second squared. Tangent has no units. So I get meters squared per second squared. I take the square root. I get meters per second. Yeah. Now let's convert that to miles per hour. I'm going to do that up here. So remember how we do conversion. So I'm going to say V is 9.8 meters per second. And now I want to convert meters to miles. Let's do that first. So, and I don't remember how many meters are in miles, but I'm going to look it up. So let's say 1 meter, 1 mile. Let's do 1 mile in meters. You could do the whole thing in Google, but I don't want to do that. 1609. Let's just go with that. So what I'm going to do right here is multiply this by 1 mile divided by 1609 meters. So if I do that, the meters cancel, right? 1 mile is 1609 meters. So this is multiplying this number by the fraction 1. So I'm not changing the real value. I'm just changing the units. Those cancel. Now I need to convert seconds to hours. So I know that, let's say, 60 seconds is 1 minute. And then I know that 1 minute, 60 minutes is 1 hour. So I can get 9.8, divide by that, multiply by 60, because minutes cancel, seconds cancel, until I get miles per hour. Let's plug it in there. So I have 9.8 times 3,600, and then 1609 divided by. I get 22. That's pretty good. And that is the speed limit for your on-ramp, 22 miles per hour, which is pretty reasonable. Now, you can actually go faster than that, right? That's the speed limit. Well, don't. If it's the speed limit, don't go faster than the speed limit. That's the speed that you could drive around that turn with zero friction. Of course, there's going to be some friction. Now, we can do a flat road with friction. We can do also a banked road with friction, but it gets a lot more complicated, okay? But flat road with friction, banked road without friction, I think both are pretty straightforward. And there you go. That's the end of that problem. Talk to you later.